Hello. We're just waiting for a few more people to join. Thank you for joining us for those who have. We usually give it about 60 seconds, a minute, allow people to join us, and then we'll kick off. So thank you for your patience. All right. We shall begin. Just quickly, hello everyone, and welcome to today's LinkedIn Live session, where we'll be diving into cybersecurity predictions for 2025. I am Shaman Jessel, Director of Communications here at Palo Alto Networks, and I'll be moderating today's exciting discussion. 2025 is shaping to be a landmark year for cybersecurity. AI-driven threats, evolving regulations, and the increasing complexity of the threat landscape are keeping security leaders on their toes. Today, we're going to explore these and more with our industry experts who bring a wealth of insight to the table. Let me introduce our incredible panelists. We have Swapna Bapat, who is Vice President and MD for India and SARC. She's based in Bangalore. Mas
Hello,
Somaya.
everyone.
Thank you for being here. Somaya-san, our chief evangelist, dialing in from Tokyo. And, I've been told also a Liverpool fan. And last and certainly not the least, Stephen Sherman, our vice president for the ASEAN region, who joins us today from Bangkok in Thailand. Thank you all for joining us today. Before we dive into the discussion, let's start with a quick quiz to get everyone thinking about the future of cybersecurity. Here's your question. Be sure to drop in your answers and look out for the winners who we will be announcing after today. And we have some very exciting prizes for our winners. So the first question, what can single unified cybersecurity platforms do for enterprises? There's 4 options and you can insert your answers in the comments. We'll give everyone 30 more seconds to respond and then we'll move on. Right. I think we're ready to go. So with that, let's jump into our panel discussion. Stephen, let me start with you. How are AI-powered threats reshaping the cybersecurity landscape in the ASEAN region?
I mean, a lot has been talked about AI, and it's a term that's used almost in every discussion on a daily basis now. In terms of the threat landscape, I mean, the simplest way to describe it is AI has amplified the threat vector. The speed of attacks have never been quicker. The types of attacks, because of the use of AI by the threat actors, and the scale of the attacks. Now, think about it. A hacker could launch maybe 100 attacks, 1,000 attacks. With AI now, you can launch many thousand attacks. And think about this key point. The many thousands of attacks which are launched, they only need to be right one time. In terms of ourselves, Palo Alto Networks, and our customers, we have to be correct every time. So we have to protect 100%. So this is the challenge we're facing with AI at the moment. And it's a daunting task for many organizations, particularly when the term AI is used by everyone in very different ways, shapes, and forms. So it becomes a little bit confusing. So hopefully today, you'll have some insights what AI actually means, and importantly, how we can help you.
Excellent. Thank you for that. And so over to you, Swapna. What unique challenges does India face in cybersecurity as it undergoes rapid digital transformation?
Your question is very interesting because that last part, digital transformation. What we see in India is a massive uptake of technology. And we saw this starting from when cellular technologies were adopted, right? 4G and 5G came very quickly to India due to our large population and a very systemic adoption of technology at a consumer level. The transformation is very fast. But with transformation comes, unfortunately, a larger attack surface. And what is very conscious from government to regulated bodies like banks and even common enterprise is the fact that they're very conscious and, I would say, in advance taking a lot of measures to ensure cybersecurity is top of mind. We recently had a conversation with a lot of our CFOs of our customers in India, and what came out very clearly is even the board is saying in your financial statement, let's start looking at calling out what is the spend on cybersecurity. So, adding on to this is AI. There's a lot of conversation happening in policymakers in the government about how do we deal with data, because AI has to be powered by data. That's number one. Number two, a lot of enterprises are adopting AI at a very fast rate. Some of them have blocked AI for their employees, or at least they think they've blocked, because visibility of applications, which application in their environment has already started using AI. A lot of their everyday applications are already using AI in the background. Those applications are still running in the enterprise. They're also grappling with data loss. So, should we shut down all AI? Should we allow AI for employees? And fourth, definitely, employees want to use AI, but a lot of the product companies, a lot of the services companies, which is very unique to this region, India and SAARC, are adopting AI as part of the services offerings and as part of their product development lifecycle. They want to create their own language models using a lot of their existing the public language models out there. So very fast evolution and awareness of cybersecurity for building products, for ensuring AI based products are part of their service delivery. The consciousness is high.
Yep. We will get more into AI later, but speaking of AI, we'd like to dive into deep fakes. And within our predictions, which we published about 4 weeks ago, we say that in 2025 is the year deep fakes go mainstream. So, Somaya-san, how is Japan tackling the growing threat posed by deep fakes, and what measures are proving effective?
Deepfake is definitely creating all kinds of different challenges and problems, both in society and within the enterprise space. But when it comes to deepfake, we see deepfake in online content, especially on social platforms. So, for example, Japan is susceptible to natural disasters like earthquakes, typhoons, and so on. And we saw some online contents created by deepfake that really fooled the society, which caused quite a bit of a problem. And then also we see deepfake in identity fraud, which is typically employed to fool, especially in the business side, the financial controllers, pretending to be a CEO of the organization and asking for like immediate transfer of a huge money to an offshore account, things like that. So these are the kind of challenges that are happening out there. And obviously the good news is there's been quite a bit of advancements globally speaking, countering with technologies detecting deepfake or AI created content in real time. So I hope that such technology is going to be employed by many online services around the world. But when it comes to what Japan is doing at the moment, it may not directly to do with deepfake itself, but there is an initiative to verify authenticity by the source of information, which is called originator profile, which basically verify the source is authentic, and because of that, the content is not tampered. And for this initiative, many media companies joined forces, And what they're doing is obviously, it's based on a framework that, media companies are using their own source of intelligence to verify the authenticity of the information. But what they're trying to do now is the organization behind this initiative, Originator Profile, is proposing the technology to various organizations like World Wide Web Consortium, Internet Engineering Task Force, to standardize the approach. So that is something that we'll find out whether it's going to be Japan specific or if it's going to be employed globally. We'll find out. But when it comes to AI, for example, obviously there are different countries and regions now trying to create AI legislation. But Japan now is trying to strike kind of a right balance between regulation and technology advancements. And they are working on it right now. So we'll probably find out maybe this year or next year, I guess. But when it comes to, tackle the issues of deepfake, obviously raising awareness, education is very important, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think deepfakes has been making the news and lots of headlines out there. So to our viewers, if you have any thoughts on deepfakes and best practices on how to manage and keep users safe, please feel free to add in your comments. I can see that, Stephen, you wanted to say something. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, just on this topic of deep fake, I don't know if any of the audience picked up this morning in the news. There was a specific incident in Europe whereby a deep fake, Brad Pitt, I'm sure everyone knows who Brad Pitt is, a deep fake of Brad Pitt managed to manipulate and deceive a person, a lady that had just been divorced. She received through her divorce settlement, I think almost £800,000. And she ended up during the course of X time frame, giving that £800,000 divorce settlement to her, what she thought was Brad Pitt. I mean, firstly, I don't think Brad Pitt needs £800,000, but imagine deep fake being used to know the exact time when someone is vulnerable. A person in this case was going through a divorce. Also, the sensitivities, Brad Pitt reaching out to me. Oh my goodness, stars reaching out to me. So, deep fake voice, etc. It's not only the authenticity of which it appears to be, it's the timing, it's the sensitivities. They understand when we're the most vulnerable. Think about it. You get phishing scams, you get deep fake audio notes during tax submission times. Recently, we just had New Year, Christmas, during those periods where there are things being offered. And when we think, oh, great, there's a Christmas sale, my colleague from Japan down at Ginza, I will head down to Ginza and, of course, to take advantage of the Christmas sale. But that's when we're the most vulnerable and we may be compromised. So the topic around having the mindset, the education around a zero trust mentality is really critical. And, it's really important. And more so when we start talking about AI, all this data that's being harvested, what is the regulatory framework that is going to be around AI? How the data will be governed? How will it be stored? How will it be protected? What are the policies around it? How will it be shared? And more importantly, the other part, of course, is the ethics around it. The data that's being collected, are the models that are being developed ensuring that everyone is being fairly judged and measured in the same correct way with fairness. So, I mean, this is an incredibly interesting and challenging topic, but the reward is immense. Our role here is to divert and remove the FUD and the confusion and set the right standards. And I honestly believe this organization who I work for, Palo Alto Networks, we are the leader in the field as it relates to AI applied to cybersecurity. And that's what's really exciting about the work we do.
Well, thank you, Stephen. I think you've broken down the deepfakes really well, and you've shed some excellent light on that. So thank you for that. But you also have provided me with a really good segue to get into AI, which I'm sure everyone is very keen to learn more about. So I'm going to address this question to Sumaya-san again. What do you think is the role of transparency that AI plays in strengthening cybersecurity frameworks in countries like Japan?
Good question. I think transparency is essential when it comes to AI. And, going back to what Stephen was talking about, obviously, what kind of data is being collected to enable AI, is very important. But when it comes to, the cybersecurity, here in Japan, especially, maybe, it's in the same in, the ASEAN region or any other, countries and regions. But one of the key challenges when it comes to, cybersecurity for many organizations is, staff and skill shortage. And so they're really finding it difficult to keep up with the volume of threats, the volume of alerts, and so on. And so something fundamentally different, it needs to be employed to change the way they go about cybersecurity. So it's probably counterproductive to keep relying on conventional methods such as old-fashioned SIEM to analyze all the log data, to try to understand what's happening out there. That's where AI plays a very important role. But one of the challenges, again, obviously, is transparency. So when it comes to transparency in AI, it's about why AI is flagging something as malicious, for example. And the interesting story is I'm hearing more and more from various prospects here in Japan over the last maybe 12 to 18 months who are using different EDR vendors. And they're saying that they are experiencing a situation where their EDR products are, flagging many different stuff as something malicious or suspicious, but there's not much information as to why. So they reach out to their vendors asking for clarification, saying, why, what's triggering all these, AI alerts? But they get a response saying, we don't really know because our AI says so. So that is probably not good enough for cybersecurity, because cybersecurity is all about, stopping bad and enabling good. So obviously that's where AI transparency is very, very important. So it's not just about strengthening cybersecurity frameworks, but in strengthening cybersecurity posture of organizations. And going back to what Stephen said about what we're doing, the good news is that we give a lot of our customers full transparency when it comes to the usage of data behind the AI, and also when our AI technologies flag something as malicious or suspicious, we give them enough clarification and information to really get them to understand what's going on and enable them to take an action. So that is something fundamental when it comes to AI transparency.
That's fantastic, but I would like to pause here to invite the second question for our quiz before we go on to a question from the audience. So if you bear with me, the second question: deepfakes are images, video, or audio of people generated or edited by AI technology. True or false? Please provide your responses in the comments. And once you're done, we will take the question from the audience. I'll just give it another 30 seconds before we ask the question. Right, okay. So a question from Shriyans Jain from India, Hero FinCorp. Thank you for your question. The question is, can you elaborate on controls around AI, please? Employees want to use it, but leadership wants to protect the data, and normal tools are getting integrated with AI. I'm going to throw this question first to Swapna, if you would.
Absolutely. And thank you for the question, Shreyansh. The employees want to use AI, so cannot blame them. In fact, even within Palo Alto, our engineering team started using AI tools very early. We obviously have to ensure that critical data to the enterprise is not leaked to these models, especially public models. What we'll see in India is a lot of the companies are building their own models using base models, some of them even hosted on prem. And how do you solve this problem? How do you balance the fact that employees want to use AI? And the beauty of today's generative AI is the fact that you don't need to be a computer science expert. You can actually, it's totally pervasive in any organization, HR, finance, various functions can use AI. So that's the beauty. But if you don't enable them, how are they going to get productive? And believe me, every CFO, every board wants companies to use AI to become more productive, increase your productivity by 30%. So, how do you do that? First is visibility. Ensure that you understand all the applications in your environment, which of them are using AI. And that goes to the transparency which was being discussed earlier. Our products AI access allows you to identify which applications in your environment, whether they're SaaS based, on prem, are they actually using AI in the background? Are they using an LLM? What's the data source? You can identify that. So, first is understanding your applications which are using AI. Second is ensuring data loss doesn't happen. Today, within Palo Alto, our engineering team, our finance, our HR, all of us use AI one way or the other. In fact, we have the best productivity tool when it comes to every employee asking what they need from the company. Our IT tickets have reduced by more than, I don't know, 80%. That's what I heard from our CIO. So we use AI confidently because we are protected by AI access. It allows us to ensure that no data is leaked from any sensitive data within Palo Alto is leaked outside. We have our customers, a lot of our customers looking at AI access as well. So ensuring that the AI journey from an employee perspective is safe is critical to allowing AI being used in the environment. And we didn't speak about developers yet, so I will stop from sharing what Palo Alto can do for developers.
Thank you for that. It's a really, really good answer. I think it was very, very well captured. But before we go on to our irregular scheduled questions, there is another question from the audience. This is from Webav. Webav wants to know, can AI replace the role of cybersecurity professionals and job roles in future? I'm going to let Stephen take this question, if you don't mind.
So thank you for the question. I mean, this is a question that continually pops up. And it's not, let me rephrase. This is a type of question that pops up when there's always this perception that technology will replace people. So, okay, I understand the fear, but let's look at the current problem that exists in the SOC, in the Security Operations Center, or across an organization as it relates to fighting cyber. We have so many alerts, so many possible threats that currently, it's very difficult for us to go and follow up each individual incident or alert to ascertain, is it real? Is it just noise? The purpose of AI here is to, as much as possible, to automate and ensure that we're focused on the right things. At the moment, if you talk to any organization now, one of the biggest problems they have is what's called alert fatigue. There are so many alerts that analysts and cyber professionals are dealing with all of these alerts. And think about this. What typically happens when there's too much to do and there's work overload? You either will try to do everything and you'll cut corners. You will start hiring more people. Your costs will become astronomical. Or another scenario is, you know what, I've seen this before. We'll let it pass. We'll just let it go. We'll make an educated assumption that this particular alert is not a problem. And that is exactly the scenario which the hackers and bad actors are hoping to achieve. Remember, we talked about AI increasing the scale, the speed of attacks. Their purpose is to overload your system with so many alerts that you get so much fatigue, you'll say, you know what, we'll let these ones go. And remember what I said, it only takes one to get through to be catastrophic to bring down your organization. The purpose of AI here is to take away that workload, to ensure that many of these patterns that we see can be closed off, can be automated, and can immediately be seen as this is non-malicious, this is just noise, let's focus on the real things. The purpose of AI is to eliminate the noise. And the second part is, what is the objective of the SOC and the security analyst? It's to go and do proactive work to be on the front foot. We honestly believe the purpose of the modern SOC or SOC transformation is to become proactive. Take away the wasted time and start doing threat hunting. Start launching black swan events on yourself. Start looking at things that you didn't have time to think about. What will quantum computing mean in terms of your organization? The problem we have now is there is so much work to do and we're overloaded. So AI is not about replacing jobs. It's about eliminating the fatigue and the work that we shouldn't be spending time on and getting us focused on the right things. Now, I'll use a very simple analogy. Remember in the old days when we wanted to get cash, we would go to a bank and withdraw the cash over the counter, and ATMs were launched. Remember what everyone said? Oh my God, ATMs. Everyone will lose their job at the bank. If you go and have a look at banks globally now, they have more employees than they ever had before. And by the way, they don't have ATMs anymore. Everything's online. So the point is, technology and AI is to get us to focus on the right things. And that's ultimately to protect the organization. And here's the other part. We keep talking about the fear and the threat. It's to help organizations deliver the services, be it government services or private sector services. And that's a wonderful thing because we want to transform our companies in a safe way.
That is an insightful angle, Stephen, as usual. Would anybody else like to add on? Sumaya-san?
Yeah, sure. I really like the analogy of ATM from Stephen, and I think it boils down to the fact that I think AI is really going to change the way we address the cybersecurity issues or the way we go about cybersecurity in general. So AI is definitely not going to replace people. AI is not going to solve everything around cybersecurity. AI is going to, stop something bad in real time, alerting something that needs attention, giving recommendations as to, what needs to be done when there is an incident. So it's all about, how organizations approach cybersecurity, how they build cybersecurity architecture, how they enforce a policy across the organization, how they tackle incidents. All these decisions need to be made by humans. So I think AI is going to really change the way that we go about cybersecurity. Is going to really help them make the right decision in real time to minimize potential risks and threats. I think that's probably the how AI is going to change the way we go about cybersecurity.
Shaman, can I add to that?
Of course, yeah. I was going to say yes. I added it, and then I was going to say to the audience, thank you so much.
Bit of a hot topic, isn't it?
It's a whole topic. It's a whole topic. And, examples, you heard from Stephen and Sumaya-san examples. I want to give you another example because cybersecurity there are so many opportunities in cybersecurity from a job perspective. So I want to show you another area where cybersecurity can help. They give examples on the SOC side. Think about the research. We have research teams who are constantly looking at how malware is evolving. Now, our research teams have been using AI for the last 10 years. And recently we published a blog where we showed how malware can evolve using AI tools. So now our red teaming efforts, our blue teaming efforts, showing what type of malware we can detect. And in fact, predicting what type of malware the bad actors can actually evolve to and build. That's another use of AI. So AI is an assist and will make cybersecurity much more efficient.
Right. So I'm just going to let the audience know. Thank you for that, Swapna. I'm just going to let the audience know that we are loving your questions that are coming in, and we will get to them. But we want to switch gears a bit on talking to each of our panelists on the uniqueness in the cybersecurity challenges that the organizations within their region is facing. I'll pose this one to Stephen. We'll go back to you now. So what are the unique challenges that organizations in your region are facing?
Okay, so in respect to ASEAN, and apologies, I can't see where all the audience is from. So those of you who do not know where ASEAN is or what ASEAN is, so ASEAN is Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, Philippines, Cambodia, Myanmar, Malaysia. So it's that assortment of countries. So imagine many of these countries, except Singapore, of course, because it's a very small nation, but however is highly digitized. But a lot of the other countries are geographically dispersed. I mean, if you look at Indonesia, it's 6,000 square kilometers from west to east, 17,000 islands. The common demographic across ASEAN, again, exception of Singapore, is 65 to 70% of people below 30 years of age. So smart devices and mobility is extremely prevalent. I'm today in beautiful Bangkok. I've got my fake bird with me. I'm dialing in from a remote location, and I'm a great example, despite my age, of a young, vibrant ASEAN person. So, I mean, the challenges around is, mobility, access to applications that are highly digitized. It could be banking, it could be mobile services, it could be, ride hailing, it could be delivery of products to your home, it could be, insurance policies, and it's also government services. Singapore, for those of you who know, national identity card, everything on the card is my personal data, my tax details, my health records. I leave and arrive in Singapore now without my passport. It's a facial recognition scan, believe it or not. So think about it, that complexity. We're dealing with very, very sophisticated types of services that are highly digitized, where decisions are being made on the fly in real time. So imagine if a threat actor gets into that environment, be it a private organization or government, how they could compromise critical infrastructure. It could compromise personal data. So to give you some examples, national airport immigration system taken down for half a day. Second example, national health services from the government taken down for multiple days. Another example, health records compromised, Prime Minister's personal health records shared with the general public. I could go on and on. So this is kind of what we're dealing with. But we, again, I come back to this point, recognize the importance of digitization, how it's going to democratize services and lift ASEAN from, a developing part of the world to a vibrant middle class that is innovative, that's mobile, that is, having rapid growth. Through COVID, that terrible period, why did ASEAN survive? It was highly digitized. We had a lot already online. Unfortunately, what's happened is hackers have seen, oh my goodness, there's all this vibrant digital economy, which means dollars and cents and rupiah and rupees and pesos, etc., and ringgits are moving. It's a prime target to go and compromise, because of hackers, the ultimate objective is to steal money, of course. So that's what we're dealing with. And our role, again, as I said, is we don't want to slow that innovation, that digital transformation, because the rewards are phenomenal. People will have access to education that never had access before. People will have access to health services. People will have access to public services from government, and I could go on and on. But we want to make sure we don't slow that development, but provide it in a secure manner, that if I get into that platform, like if I'm in Singapore, I have absolute confidence that I'm protected. My personal data is protected. How my data is being used is protected, and my best interests are safe.
Cool. Progress comes with its pain points. We talked a lot about AI, hot topic. We talked about deepfakes. We talked about digital transformation. No one's talked about cloud just yet. Does anybody want to talk about any unique challenges with securing the cloud? Swapna, Sumaya-san, would you like to jump in?
Sure, I can start and then I'll hand over to Sumaya-san. And I'll take the context of India again, because we have a lot of digital natives, and these digital natives are a powerhouse of our economy. Stephen gave very nice examples about how the younger population is used to getting everything in 10 minutes. And it's amazing for people my age to see that groceries can be delivered at your doorstep. The next generation is very used to this. Now, having that kind of scale, and we're talking in India, millions, right? We have, during the Diwali sale, for some of the large digital native customers we have, they're talking millions of transactions per second. That's the rate at which they have to transact, and that can happen only in the cloud, because then they're able to scale and scale up and scale down as needed. But all this, again, needs to be secure. Every transaction has to be secured. Every interaction with a credit card, so the CRUD has to be maintained. And then every transaction with your credit card, all the data associated with it. There are regulations around RBI. Those regulations have to be met. So a lot of these digital natives have adopted Prisma Cloud from Palo Alto, ensuring that their security, as they expand their landscape and their attack surface in the cloud, it is secure completely. The platform approach that we took with cloud security allows them to ensure the visibility is maintained all the way to the SOC. So any threat that they see, whether it's on-prem or whether it's in the cloud, it's completely secure. We see this not only with digital natives, but also with banks in India, because banks are facilitating the transactions we see today. If you see vendors in India who are selling flowers, vegetables on the street, they don't need cash. Nobody needs cash in India. And this was innovation that came from India. But allowing this to happen in the background, government agencies, banks are really supporting massive infrastructure in the cloud. And that again needs protection. So, cloud security, if not adopted with a platform approach, gives a siloed view of the world, does not help you build strong security in the environment. And I think with Palo Alto, we have had the fortune and we are privileged to be protecting a lot of these customers in India. Sumaya-san, I'll hand over to you.
Oh, thanks for that. Yeah, when it comes to the cloud, up until maybe 5, 10 years ago, it was probably about, it was quite simple when it comes to the adoption of cloud. It was about lift and shift. So, what was running on-prem was virtualized and moved up to the cloud. But now with the adoption of not just the virtualized environments, it's all about containers, serverless, and so on. And now it's all about the speed and agility. So in doing so, a lot of organizations are now adopting multi-cloud and hybrid cloud. So one of the key challenges when it comes to securing such a complex hybrid cloud environment is a lot of cloud engineers, cybersecurity professionals, they need to understand how to secure their environments within the multi-cloud environment. So in other words, they have to learn how to secure or how to use all these different kinds of tools available from, different CSPs, for example, even if what they're trying to do is exactly the same thing, but the application of that may be different. So that's where, there's quite a bit of a challenge in terms of understanding, learning, and maintaining how to secure those environments. So that's where probably a platform-based approach we employ, namely Prisma Cloud, for example, would play a very, important role. So it doesn't really matter whether you're using a single cloud or multi-cloud, hybrid cloud environments. You can have a single pane of glass when it comes to the cybersecurity posture, and then apply exactly the same policy regardless of the types of services they use. So I think that's one of the key challenges that's happening when it comes to the cloud adoption. But the good news is there is a way to go about it.
Excellent. Thank you for that very insightful response. It's I love it when everyone has such amazing responses. But this will take us perfectly to our third question, the quiz that we are running on the side. Can we have the third question up, please? In our 2024 State of Cloud Native Security Report, what percentage of global respondents predict that AI-driven supply chain attacks will compromise critical software components or cloud services? I'll allow for a minute for everyone to respond, and then we'll continue to the next question. Yeah, I think our audience are very, very apt at responding to this question. If you have had a chance to read our report, yep, post your answer in the comments, and yes, we can show the answer now. Well, thank you, guys. We'll switch gears a bit, and the next question to the panel. And this is open to all three of you, but we'll go down. We'll start with Stephen first, because I think you were Somaya-san was the last one to respond earlier. So we go back to Stephen. The question is, our observations indicate that the average organization uses 43 security tools, creating significant complexity in managing cybersecurity. How can organizations streamline their security operations to reduce this complexity while simultaneously enhancing their overall protection and resilience against evolving threats?
Yeah,
Stephen.
so this is a really, really important question, and it reflects the current state of most organizations. And there's a brief history lesson I will provide here. And I'm saying I'm going to share this history lesson from a position of experience. I've been in and out of this space called cyber intelligence, etc., for almost 35 years. The term platform, let's be clear, is not new. Let's be honest, it's not new. However, here's the challenge. There has not been a vendor or organization on the planet that has actually delivered a true platform offering. So because of that, the threat landscape has changed. Organizations, initially would have everything centralized. And I'll use the analogy. Remember how bank robbers used to operate? You'd have a bank, a physical structure, and the robbers would go and walk through the front door with a gun. And sometimes they would wear a mask and sometimes not. In the 1930s, the bank robbers became, celebrities like John Dillinger and Bonnie and Clyde, and they wouldn't wear a mask, and everyone would think they were heroes. They're the modern day Robin Hood. But in response to that type of threat, the banks responded by putting a man with a gun at the door. Now, in our line of work, the threat landscape has changed. It's no longer a physical bank branch. They're multi-locations. And my learned colleagues shared the adoption of cloud. Now think about it. I always use this silly, sarcastic comment. You can see physical things, but where's the cloud? Let me look at the sky. I'm sitting here in Bangkok. There are so many clouds. Which cloud am I talking about to protect? So it's very, very difficult to protect these different things. And in response, because there was never a platform, people bought solutions to fix certain problems. We had a data center problem. Let's protect that. We then want application security. We then wanted data loss prevention. We then talked about endpoints. So we had an EDR solution. We then talked about potential mobile devices. We had a smart device solutions. There was an explosion of, mobile security solutions. And then, of course, there was cloud. Every step of the way, an organization would buy a Band-Aid to stick on that pain to protect themselves. Now, they then created all this level of integration, and they got, a huge project team involved, either themselves or hired in experts, and integrated everything. I would call these projects Frankensteins because they had things that kind of worked. They looked ugly, but it was the creature I created and it works. Here's the unfortunate reality. If you go and do an analysis of the types of compromises that happen, you can spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars in all these different products, stitch them together, have an army of people running and monitoring them, but you will always have a blind spot. And the hackers are looking for these blind spots. They're looking for a point of compromise. Now, remember we talked about alert fatigue. Hackers will probe the endpoint. They will probe the cloud application. They will probe the network. Now, these may seem non-malicious or malicious, but what's happening is a threat actor is finding ways to enter your organization and stitch these pieces together to find a way to truly get in. Now, if you have lots of products and you cannot create the telemetry to realize these 3, 4, 5, 7 different things are in fact related, you're going to have a very incomplete view of the threat vector. And that's exactly what has happened. So when you have 40 plus products, 50, even 35, you will always have blind spots, which hackers, rogue organizations, etc. will compromise. The beautiful thing about the platform is you will have seamless integration. All those different bits of noise that I talked about can be stitched together and you have a complete image of what you are encountering. You will see, oh, in fact, that funny little bit of activity on the ATM network was in fact related to a number of mobile banking sessions, related to a number of locations, which actually had a network issue. These are not strange incidents. They're actually all related, which is basically, you stitch this all together, you can see it's a threat vector where someone is being very sophisticated trying to get into your network. The platform gives you that insight in advance. If that threat is something we've seen before, they immediately can automate that and respond automatically without having an analyst get involved. Immediately take action, run out the policy, protect that particular threat. If it's something new, it gets flagged. And rather than your analysts focused on noise, hey, Stephen, this particular activity, these 5, 6, 7 different things are in fact one threat, and it needs your immediate attention. The time to detect that is within seconds and to respond within minutes, rather than what's been happening now because of lack of platform. It goes into days, weeks, and months before you detect it. And even when you detect it, it takes you weeks and months to respond. And in the meantime, the threat actor is gathering more data. He's exfiltrating stuff out. He's compromising, confidential information. He's probably sitting in your network dormant, waiting for the right time to launch an attack because, he wants Stephen's personal health records to realize I have no hair. Well, guess what? I have no hair. You don't need to go and find those health records. That's what's playing out. And the platform will give you that insight to be proactive. We want to be proactive. We want to stop the threat before it happens. And the platform will give you that analytical insight, that awareness, and the ability to stop the threat before it happens. Because think about this, once the threat has happened, c'est la vie, sayonara, arrivederci, goodbye, damage is done.
Adios, that's one more. On the subject of platformization, which is incredibly important, and it is entering, the word platformization is entering mainstream conversations and even language. So Sumaya-san, did you have anything to add to this?
Yeah, so, just like Stephen, I've been in the cybersecurity industry for the last maybe almost 30 years. And, back in the days, the cybersecurity issues were very simple. And, because of that, there aren't that many products out there. It was about the client server and so on. So back then, I think, having multiple cybersecurity tools, or you could call it multi-vendor policy or product silos, whatever you want to call it, it's been around for 3 decades. But back in the days, a lot of organizations adopted the concept of multi-vendor policy. So for example, using antivirus from a vendor A on an endpoint, and then antivirus from vendor B on the gateway, and then the file from a vendor C, and so on. But that concept worked really well because back in the days, everything was so slow, everything was simple. It was so cybersecurity vendors were kind of competing against each other in terms of how quickly they can react to a latest malware, for example. So response time from each vendor was very, very important. But back then, we saw only a few hundred, malware a month, for example. But now we are talking about millions or zillions of, cyber attacks going on everywhere. So I think, the situation is completely different now. And so in other words, it's all about going back to the topic of AI. We need to stop the threats, as Stephen said, in real time. And in doing so, AI is going to play a vital role. But in order to have an effective AI tool deployed to stop threats in real time, the volume of quality data behind the AI models is very, very important. And also, if you talk about all these different cybersecurity tools, they are typically managed by different group of people in organization. Different tool means operation is different. Operation is fully siloed, and more importantly, security data to detect threats in real time, they're all siloed. So something has to change, and that's where simplifying the architecture, simplifying cybersecurity is very important, and that's where a platform approach is going to really improve the cybersecurity posture overall, and also it's going to change the way they operate the cybersecurity in a more efficient manner. So that's why, and the good news is what we did here in Japan is, we did a bit of a survey amongst the cybersecurity decision makers in large organizations in Japan last year. And almost 60% of decision makers are now trying to reduce the number of cybersecurity tools and services. So they are definitely feeling the pain of, more and more cybersecurity tools being deployed to address all kinds of issues, but they are now realizing that something fundamentally has to change. So obviously, that's where platformization is going to play a vital role in, maybe the next 5 to 10 years now.
Thank you. You mentioned change, and you also mentioned platformization, which, like I said, is entering mainstream conversation. And so it's not just technologists that are saying platformization; it's also the board level. And I'd like to, address a question that we received from the audience. And the question is, how can the board adapt cybersecurity strategies within the organization, and how to overcome challenges to make every employee understand the importance of cybersecurity? I'll throw this one over to you, Swapna.
Thanks, Yogesh, for the question. It's adapt cybersecurity strategies within the organization for the board. So let's go with that one before we talk about employees understanding importance. As I shared earlier, we had a CFO roundtable recently with the top ITES, some banks were there. So we had a variety of verticals across the India market with our own CFO. And it was very apparent that they were being asked by the board, how much do you spend on cybersecurity? There are two reasons. One is regulations and compliance. They see a trend that government organizations, not only in India, but across the world, are getting stricter about how data is dealt with, how the data protection has to be one of the primary important things, because data is money, and how every enterprise has to be able to protect that. So it is a board level conversation. There's no doubt. The strategy perhaps boards can do is actually have CISOs part of the board. There's a lot of conversation around this and a lot of thought around whether this is the right thing or not. But if cybersecurity damages your reputation, first is regulation compliance, second is reputation damage. We know what can happen to companies when they're not serious about cybersecurity, when they're not having visibility into the data that is transacting within the enterprise. Data is fluid throughout an enterprise, from an employee to the endpoint, which is sitting in the cloud, and to your partners whom you're constantly interacting with. Data is flowing everywhere. Not having the visibility and ability to secure it is definitely a board problem. So having a cybersecurity presence in every conversation of the board is, I think, one strategy the board can definitely employ. Now we'll go to the employee base. Employees training has been something which I think has been done for a decade plus. And I've seen, as I've worked through various technologies, right, from when we were building switches and routers, I was building a router for taking internet traffic. How do you use cybersecurity at that level? How do you use cybersecurity when cellular networks were being deployed with large service providers? Cybersecurity has been a topic across. There's a lot of education that enterprises do. They do those, they send you those emails hoping you don't click. But if you do click, we all have been there and we have had to take that forceful training. But has that worked? And I've seen a lot of studies around this. Unfortunately, it hasn't been as effective. It works for 3 months and then employees go back to touching those links. So it has to become a habit. Cybersecurity has to become an intrinsic part of the culture. And every conversation, employees must be aware that, yes, there is an entire toolkit, and IT InfoSec is working to ensure that the enterprise is secure. But if employees don't adopt it as a habit, as a part of the culture, it's going to be hard. So that's probably addressing those two areas from a board and an employee perspective.
And also a government perspective, thank you, which is a perfect segue. But before we get into the last, well, almost the last question that I want to ask the panel, I do want to pause here for a minute for the final question in our quiz. So question 4. Which of the following is included in our cybersecurity predictions for 2025? This would be based on our blog that we published a few weeks ago. I'll give everyone 30 seconds to post your answers in the comments. Thank you so much for playing, everyone. This has been great. There's so much engagement. And it's so great that most people have most of the answers correct. Okay, I think we're good. Thank you. So I have a pretty interesting question with regards to ethics and government. And the question here is, we've seen how collaboration between the public and the private sector has resulted in some well thought out legislation. And I'm referring here to Australia, but I'm pushing this out to everyone here now. But what about governments? Do you think leaders in the ASEAN nations should look to collaborating more with each other to address growing cybersecurity threats? And what do you think can be done to facilitate that? Stephen, this one is for you.
Yeah, so interestingly, and this has not been staged by any means, the reason I'm in Bangkok, there is a gathering of leaders from the respective ASEAN countries, and cyber is one of the topics. Related to cyber, of course, is AI. Now, what is the role of government here? You heard a common theme throughout the last 57 minutes or 58 minutes, data, data, data. Data, which in terms of ourselves as individuals is our personal information. How is it being harvested? How is it being stored? How is it being used? How is it being protected? So governments from a regulatory standpoint definitely have a role. How is this data being shared? Now, some of us may recall several years ago in Europe, there was this thing called GDPR. Very similar as it relates to AI. You will start to see government organizations, in fact, it's already starting to talk about the implications of AI. What should be the regulatory framework around AI? The other element, of course, which you've touched on, is the ethics. How are these models going to be created? Is it going to be fair that every individual, every citizen has a seat at the table in terms of how these models will make decisions? And this speaks to transparency. Everything that when we talk about AI, the audit trail, the ability to see how a model was created, what was the data that was used to create a certain machine learning algorithm or model, etc. We have the ability to audit trail that. And that's really important because that speaks to the ethics. Who has given the input on that particular model? Has everyone given input? Are there certain groups of persons or use cases that have been missed or have been overemphasized? These are all very, very important considerations because when we start to automate and we start to make decisions without human intervention, you want to ensure that ethics is in place. Even when you start to automate, and here's the key thing, we talked a lot about automation today as well. You have transparency on the models, you have transparency on the decision-making, but ultimately, again, this relates also to the question, will we all lose our jobs? The role of us to still intervene, to question the model and have the ability to interrogate the model. How was this decision made? And that's what we should be focused on, creating the best model. So for ourselves, our models and how we make decisions are never static. They can't be static. The threat landscape is changing constantly. We're collecting data all the time. We're learning from a new threat. We're collaborating. We're augmenting. We're improving. If we've done something wrong, the model improves. And that's the position we need to be in, that the ethics behind it, the decision-making behind it, and the logic behind it has everyone's best interest at heart. And that's what we aim to do.
With what you just said, that having everyone's best interest at heart, I'm afraid we are running out of time. So I want to quickly just I'll just ask Sumaya-san, any last words? And of course, after Sumaya-san, Swapna, you can also add your thoughts.
Well, obviously, we could probably go on for a few more hours because, with various topics, but unfortunately, time's running out. But, I'd like to say many thanks to the the audience for tuning in while you have so much on your plate at work. I hope that the conversation we've had over the last an hour or so is going to give you some interesting insights in terms of how you go about cybersecurity in the future. But I think cybersecurity is definitely becoming more and more important. With data breaches, ransomware, etc. It's going to have quite a bit of a ramifications. Quite a significant business impact. It's going to have an negative impact on the economy, supply chain, and so on. And the good news is, there are a lot of governments out there, and all these organizations are trying to make cybersecurity better, make cybersecurity mandatory. I hope that the collaboration between the government entities and the cybersecurity, the companies or the enterprises will make not just one company cybersecurity efforts better, but it's going to make a collective and significant impact on the whole community in terms of making cybersecurity better. But once again, thank you so much for tuning in.
Thank you, Sumit-san. And I think collaboration is the key word here. Swapna, any words to wrap up our discussion today?
Again, I echo what Sumaya-san said. Really appreciate folks coming in a work day and listening, and hope you found it useful. I'd just like to talk about very quickly about the supply chain attacks. Think of it from a threat actor perspective. If I'm able to attack in between the development of a product, one of the components, for example, a lot of developers use GitHub, pollute GitHub. They are able to attack 1,000 companies at one go. They don't have to spend money on specific companies. So it's a very real attack, and it's exacerbated with AI being part of the development supply chain. So it's very important that when you create a strategy as a company and you're actually using AI models or developing your own, using public models or developing your own when you're developing the product, to ensure that you protect the model itself, because it's a new attack surface, it's new type of attacks. DOS attack is different when it comes to LLMs. Polluting data, prompt injections, these are different type of attacks. So Palo Alto is there. We have our AI runtime security product, which will help you protect against all the attacks that can happen in a supply chain. And our entire code to cloud, Prisma Cloud, is an offering for you to protect your entire supply chain when it comes to development. So again, thank you very much from the Palo Alto side.
Well, thank you. And thank you to all our speakers today. Swapna in Bangalore, Sumaya-san in Tokyo, and Stephen in Bangkok. I love how global we are, and myself in Sydney, Australia. So thank you so much. And thank you to our audience for joining us and your questions and your comments. We really appreciate you. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.